Hi, I'm Cindy, the Everyday Gluten Free Gourmet, sharing tips and recipes from my kitchen for more everyday cooking in yours. Today I'm going to show you how I make my gluten-free flour mix, and stick around to the end. I'll show you how I organize and store my ingredients so that you can easily make your flour mix in just a few minutes. So the one thing you need for gluten-free baking is a kitchen scale. An electronic kitchen scale nowadays should have two features that you're looking for: a 0 button, sometimes called tare, so that you can put a bowl on it and then start the measurement at 0. And the other feature is to adjust the weight from pounds and ounces to kilos and a few other settings. So we're going to start. This recipe is 60% starches and 40% whole grain flours. If you don't know the difference between starches and whole grain flours, a good way to learn is to put a label on your container. So the canister that I use to make my flour in and to use it from, I have a label here. It's very old, but it has in my handwriting 40% whole grain, and then it's got a list of all the different ones I have bought and could use and have tried, and then 60% starches, and it's got a few different options there. So invariably you'll run out of something or want to try something new, and that's the ratio that we're going for. So let's get started. I'm going to turn my scale on. I've got just some cheap dollar store plastic bowls. They're light, and of course they all weigh the same, so I can interchange if I'm interrupted for any reason. So the sweet rice flour, also called glutinous rice flour, you can see I put that on the label as well, and it helps to learn some of the names. They just go by two names, and you can see it in recipes all over the place and packages when you're buying it at the store. So it's nice to learn, a good way to learn the lingo. So I'm going for 300 grams here. The nice thing about weighing it is if you put too much in, you can just take it out. I've done this so many times. I know the bowl's going to be pretty full at 300. And if there's a little too much, not quite. There we go. 300. Okay, then I'm going to pour that directly into the container that I'm making my mix in, put it back on the scale. If you're away from the scale too long, it'll turn off, but we're still at 0 here. Now the potato starch. This is a different white, and it's much clumpier, so I find that I like to strain the potato starch into the flour mix before I mix it at the end. It just makes mixing it easier, so it's quite got hard lumps in it, and if I just strain it, then I can mix it without so much trouble at the end. There we go, 300. Yep. Oh, and I'm going to put it over the strainer. So I've got the strainer in my container, over my container, even spooning it out, there's some hard lumps there. So I'll just do it in 2 batches, put it right on, and then just rub the spoon on the bottom so it comes through nice and fine. Dump the rest in. So you don't have to do this. You can just shake it at the end, or mix it with a whisk, or try whatever and see what you think. There is a bit of difference between each brand. Some are a little clumpier, but I love potato starch, and it's made a huge improvement in my baking since I started using that. So I highly recommend that. Okay, so I'm done with the strainer. Now I'm going to do my 2 whole grain flours. So sorghum. This one's a little bit more of a brown color, so you can always tell when you're measuring them, the color's different, and you want to make sure all the color's gone when you have your finished mix that you're going to use. So now these 2 whole grain flours, I'm just going for 200. So each flour has a different density, so that's what makes gluten-free, I guess one of the things that makes gluten-free baking so challenging is that you can't just substitute a cup of any of these flours, or even sometimes the flour mix, because the density is different, so the weight is different. So there we have 200 grams of sorghum. So I guess you can see that it's pretty precise, right down to the gram, but if you've had some not so successful gluten-free baking experiences, I would recommend that you just try and be a little more precise when you're baking. It's not like cooking where you can just add a little bit of this or a little bit of that. When you're baking, it's better to be a little precise. So here we go with the millet. Now this is a very yellowy color flour. A little too much, I can just take it out. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to put those 4 flours in here. Yellow, brown, white, and white. And now I'm going to mix it with a whisk. It's really easy to mix. If you have kids, they might want to shake it for you. I just use a whisk. You'll see that it's a common recommendation in gluten-free baking to use a whisk to mix your ingredients in many recipes when you're making. So this gluten-free flour mix works great for me. I use it in muffins and cookies and cakes, and all of the recipes on my website this flour mixture works for. So there we have it. A few little white spots there. And it's done. So this makes a kilo of flour mix, and it's about 8 cups if you measure it out. And it's a fraction of the cost of buying a gluten-free flour mix. So if you've bought a few mixes and you're not happy with them, making your own is not that hard. But certainly it takes a little bit of a process to get it set up. So there's my gluten-free flour mix. Now, how I store it. Here's the bucket. I have a clear bucket with easy handle so I can grab it out of the cupboard. I put the recipe on both sides so I can see it on the counter while I'm making it. And I also have a small jar with just the leftover flour if I had a little bit left in my container and I wanted to put it in here before I make my recipe. And then I can just use that if I need a couple tablespoons here or there, or if I'm short on my mix. So I'm going to just put these canisters away so the 2 round ones stack up easily. I assume probably everyone's got a bunch of different sizes of containers because you buy canister sets, they're in different sizes, and you've got probably twice as many or 4 times as many flours as anyone who doesn't do gluten-free baking. So these 4 fit in here nicely. My bowls and my strainer fit in here as well. The jar for the extra flour. You can keep your scale in there. I don't because I use it for other things. And that's it. Ready to go. A whole batch of flour in that container. So thanks for watching.